and welcome to Revolutionary Mental Health. I'm the host, Debbie Nelson, and I'm here with Mike Manion.
Hmm.
He is an amazing individual who decided he wanted to help veterans for a very special reason. He has started several organizations, in particular, helping individuals find a higher level of healing. One of his organizations is Healing Frontline Heroes. Welcome, Mike. We go back. I've
Thank you.
known you for a while, but um, I've seen you grow exponentially and do so much amazing work. Uh, I always like to kind of start like, how did you get into doing this? I mean, this is a unique niche that you found. So share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, thank you very much, Debbie. I appreciate that. And eventually the stories just become stories, right? But that's why it's so easy to just go ahead and tell them. But the all of the success and all of the healing and all of that great stuff came as a result of a tremendous amount of pain. It was the pain of service, the pain of childhood, the pain of all those different things that eventually had me on a skid where after I retired from the military service, I was in a state of depression for probably about 2 or 3 years, wanting suicidal, disconnected from the family emotionally, all those different things that I didn't realize was happening until they did. Right. So I retired from the military in 2013 after a 22-year career, quite a few deployments and things in support of some of the operations that we've had globally. And that's a whole other subject there in terms of what level of understanding one comes back with, and as it pertains to the way that we're interfacing with the world, the level of understanding that you come back with versus what people think they know from the television and everything else is a whole different thing. And the one of the things that jumps out at me every time I start talking about this is when we talk about the conflict in Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that stuff, we're looking at 20 years worth of struggle over there. And in that, you never want to say only, because any soul that dies for that is one too many. But we will say that with 7,000 people, or 7,000 or more, between 7 and 8,000 that actually died in those operations. Yet since then, we've lost 25 to 30,000 who deployed to suicide.
Oh my
So when the
gosh.
actual battle numbers are 7,000, that's where the only come. Well, you say you only 7,000 people, right? But in comparison to how many have died from suicide at their own hand, that number is triple, quadrupled. So there's obviously a problem there, right? So it's the whole thing of the help that we can get from the VA once you get to the point that you decide you're going to ask for some help, which is a whole other thing in itself, because the military mindset does not, that's not something that's imposed on you, right? So like, going to the doctor while you're in, or, just taking care of yourself. I mean, those type of things are highly frowned upon, in terms of mission first, right? So there's a lot of people that we just, the term is, suck it up and drive on, right? And that's what a lot of folks do for many, many years. And eventually, that, telling yourself some motivational phrase, or saluting the flag, that's not enough to make you feel okay for what you've seen and done. Right. So when you go down to the VA and start talking about these things, it's a system in place that's definitely not as user friendly as it can be. You got the delay, deny, defend doctrine in there. You got to delay these folks' benefits and deny them and play that game. And, the whole time they're supposed to be getting better, but that they're not. And this speaks directly to that suicide rate. At some point, I'm not sure what the number is now, but at one point they were saying that it was 25 to 40 guys a day that were
Oh my
making the
gosh.
decision to do this. Yes. So I was one of those guys. I found myself in that rut. I was 3 years after I retired, I was damn near 300 pounds. I was drinking, uncontrollably, and, eating anything, it was just, that was my mechanism,
Right.
but at the same time, I managed still to have a high performing job, get up every single day and go through the motions, making good money and providing what was, financially a good life, for the children and everything. But
Right.
there was no emotion. It was just like robot status. It was just like, okay, I'm doing this on autopilot. There's no true connection to anything of it. And it was horrible. Um, I eventually got to the point where I knew that I needed some help. And it came in the form of plant medicine. A friend of mine that I grew up with, we grew up together out in Southern California, but hadn't seen each other in many years and all that. But stayed in contact by Facebook just like everybody else does.
Right.
And he had been watching. He had been seeing me on Facebook, and we had had a couple of different conversations and stuff. And one day he just, we had a conversation. He called me and just basically asked me, like, what's going on with you, man? This ain't you. This person I'm seeing, it's not you. And I was just at a point on that particular day when I was ready to hear that. If he had called me maybe 2 days before or 3 days after, I probably would have told him to get the hell off my phone. You don't know me like that, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But the day when that phone rang, I was ready. And we had a conversation. He told me about ayahuasca and about all these different plant medicines and everything. And to be honest, at that point, there wasn't too much I wouldn't have done, to try to feel better,
Right.
just to not want to kill myself, just not to want to be
Right.
uh, away from everybody who I felt like I loved and all that, right? I just wanted to feel something different or anything different. And my friend told me about that. And the next thing I knew, I went out to, I was in Atlanta at the time, but I knew that I was getting ready to move to Arizona, but I was in Atlanta and I came out to Phoenix for my very first plant medicine ceremony. And that was approximately 5 years ago. That very first ceremony that I did was we did mushrooms that very first night, and then they did Bufo the next morning. So my very first intro into mushrooms was a 5 gram dose, and that was 5 grams for a guy who hadn't cried in 20 years.
Are you
It
kidding?
was,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they dropped me pretty deep with the 5G, but I needed it. That's what needed to happen, right? So that first ceremony with the 5 grams on board, everything that I even thought was an issue, it just whooped my ass all night.
The plant medicine tends to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
In
yeah. I mean,
ways.
especially when you haven't really ever had the opportunity or taking the time to sit, with your emotions and see what this feeling comes from and where, all of that kind of stuff. Most folks, we do a good job of keeping ourselves distracted, from all those things. Like I said, I was 300 pounds and
Yeah.
still functioning. I was getting great appraisals at work and everything else and paying all the bills and doing all the good things, but
Okay.
I
Your
was a
body.
ticking time bomb. But so those five Gs sent me pretty deep. I spent probably a good 3 or 4 hours. Just crying. Just processing all of it. The childhood stuff. The military stuff, the life stuff. Just all of those things. I had never had a chance to do that, and when I did, um, it showed me some pretty ugly stuff. For a few hours, but then when I became accepting of it, and I was like, okay, I understand. I get it. I get it. As soon as my mindset changed within that journey, so did the journey. And it started showing me now, okay, all these beautiful things that are really meant for you if you get your shit together and get on this timeline, and go back and, all those relationships and things, the ones that are super important, here's how you fix them. The ones that aren't important, let them go anyway. You didn't need them.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of that was the lesson that I went through with the mushrooms, and it was beautiful. But then the very next morning, they served Bufo. And when I tried Bufo, oh my goodness, that was, the mushrooms did a hell of a job the night before. And then Bufo came the next morning and just took me to a whole different level just in that one 24-hour setting. And at that point right then, I realized to myself, I said, you know what, this Bufo medicine, in particular, this right here has the potential to help so many people. Of course, I had veterans in mind because that's what I was and I am, right? But just anybody and everybody, right? So the experience led me to know right away that that was something that I needed to learn more about, and that I wanted to eventually help people to get access to this medicine, whether it was just access or whether it was actually serving it. I didn't care. I just knew that it needed to be out there. So at that point, I was still working for the government. I forgot to mention that as well. I did my 22 years in the military, and when I got out, I went to work for the government in a couple of different capacities. I was in federal law enforcement for a minute, and then eventually I was working for the VA, the Veterans Administration, the very same folks that I'm talking about, which is why, again, I can speak to it with a lot of certainty, and anybody can feel free to debate me on whatever they want to, but I worked in that organization as an employee labor relations specialist with access to all of the rules, regulations, and guidelines that run the place. So that's what I was doing. I was supporting the Veteran Administration and the Merit System Protection Board court, the cases and things that were coming against them.
So
I
you
had
came in
access
and
to all the,
basically continued to serve in a capacity. So you weren't in the military, but you were still serving
yeah,
this
yeah,
demographic.
yeah. But it also
Quickly
gave me
talk
the,
about, I mean, because I know Bufo for the layman person, what exactly is Bufo? I mean, we know mushrooms, but what is Bufo?
yes, excellent question. So Bufo is 5-MeO DMT. So it's some dimethyltryptamine. So this particular medicine that we're talking about it's a secretion from the Sonoran Desert Toad, which the Sonoran Desert Toad, of course, is germane here to Mexico, all the way up through California, Arizona, and some of those places, all the way up to like Colorado. So this particular species of toad has a venom that's attached to them that they're able to utilize in the wild to protect themselves from predators. Now, that particular venom, the chemical component of it is the 5-MeO DMT, which is the dimethyltryptamine, the exact same thing that the human body produces inside the pineal gland for us to be able to go into different realms. The DMT is also produced in our lungs at a lesser capacity, but that's why you can have a DMT release through breath work. So some folks that are really good breath work instructors can get people to a DMT level release as well. But the substance itself is naturally in our bodies, and that's what we're able to tap, or that's what we tap into to be able to go into be the multidimensional phases of ourselves, the dream world and everything else. So when you have this particular medicine, it takes you straight, to that dimension, the fifth dimension and beyond, right? So, however, where the difficulty comes in for some people is that, the traumas and the stressors and, just the way that we're living our lives, our belief systems and everything else have a lot of us thinking that the body that we're currently occupying is the apex of us, when in fact it's not. This body that you're assigned for this iteration is just for this iteration,
Right.
right? So just as something as simple as, if you ask somebody, hey, are you a multidimensional individual? Well, I don't know, what is that? Well, have you ever had a dream? If you've ever had a dream, then you're a multidimensional individual. Let's follow that thought, right? So, but again, it breaks down to people's different belief systems and thought processes and everything else. But after you've had this experience, this is an experience that will deliver a certain peace and oneness with you that lets you know that you are absolutely part of one higher consciousness. And it's just, it lets the statement be known for a fact that, the biggest illusion the devil created was to think that we were apart, and that
Right.
we were something separate, but yeah, so after, that very first experience of mine with that, I knew that I wanted to know more about this medicine in terms of at least helping people to get access to it.
Right.
I started learning a little bit there with the folks that I started with in Phoenix, a good group of folks and everything. However, we just had different thoughts in terms of how, this whole thing should go. When I felt like I wanted to learn more about it, I decided that I was going to find the most I guess, authentic source, or the most in tune group of people to figure out about how to work with this medicine. And to my knowledge at that time, the people that were the most closely related to it was the Seri Comcac Nation, the tribe down in Punta Sueca, Mexico. And so I set out to make contact with them, and I wanted to go down by myself, first to do much more deeper work on myself, and to see what that medicine could do in terms of just taking me further on this journey. Because at the same time I had been using mushrooms and all that as well. All of those things were part of what I was doing. It took me, it was from the time that I had Bufo, the very first experience, it was approximately 6 months later I had walked away from everything in terms of the job.
Wow, you're kidding.
Oh, really?
6 months later, you're like, I'm done. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was already done. I
Yeah.
just didn't know why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like when we finally, I always say that when the opportunity, when I'm working with someone, I always say, you need to pray or meditate, whatever you want to call it. But when we call in and ask for guidance as to what's the next step for us for healing, it's amazing what doors open.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
always tell people, I'm like, listen, it's not for me to dictate what your healing path is, but let me
Mhm.
help introduce you to some things that are going to help you. And that's the
Yeah.
point of like this revolutionary mental health is that I feel like there are so many people that are truly profoundly suffering and don't honestly, because we all know what the VA, like I tell, the work that I've done, the most medicated people in the world are veterans, Medicaid,
Yep.
and Medicare. Those are the
Yep.
top three demographics in the entire world that have the most medications given to them. So it tells a lot that our treatment for trauma is to numb people, like you said.
Yes.
Like if we can numb you so that you don't actually feel the trauma and you don't remember it, then we're doing good. And the
Right.
truth is that we're just trapping all of it.
Absolutely. And that's why alcohol is available on every corner,
Yep.
but marijuana is illegal.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be around 1,000 weed heads than one drunk.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're the angriest people in the world. An alcoholic is not a fun person to be around.
Right.
At
But
least
then again,
those
now it goes back to that. I mean, why is that person drinking? Here we are back again with the trauma. Right.
Right, right. So when you went down there, you started working with the indigenous people themselves.
Yes. So my intention was again to go down there and dig deeper into my own healing and learn more about this medicine. So the very first time I went down there, I stayed. I stayed 12 days. I was able. It took me about a couple of weeks, to get in contact with somebody down there who would actually respond to me and have a conversation. But I got in touch with Luis Miguel Lopez, and he ended up being my medicine mentor down there. But the very first time that I went down, I had no idea what I was going or what I was doing, but I wasn't scared. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, this is the journey. Put Punta Chueca in the GPS, and that's where we're going. And I did. I just drove on down to Mexico. I had a whole bunch of stuff in the car, and the very first time that I went, I stayed for 12 days with Luis, and we just did Bufo copious amounts of times. To where I understood exactly what my own darkness felt like and what my own darkness, derived from, all these different things. I felt like, when I went down there initially, I had the intention of hoping that maybe somebody would teach me. But then once, I got there, I realized, this is not something that, you can just show up here and say, I want to do. They have to know you, you have to know them, and it has to be like an interchange of will, just a change of goodwill and all that stuff. And then they will invite you, maybe if you want to
Oh,
do
really?
the
Oh,
initiation
okay.
portion of
Because
it. Then you
these are
can,
actual shamans in this. So it's not like, hey, I'm just going to go to some little retreat. You're actually working with shamans that you've been trained with.
yeah.
I
Hmm.
can see where the authenticity of the healing would be very, very profound.
It is, and the not to say that that other people out there who are serving this medicine and stuff are not doing a great job with it, because that wouldn't be true either. There's plenty of people out there that are serving this medicine and doing it in a very honorable fashion and making some life changing things happen for people. But then on the other side of that, there's some folks out there that are just lighting pipes for people and charging a bunch of money. It is what it is, right?
Right.
But as it pertains to the Seri Nation, I will say this too. It was my understanding before I went down there that they had this deep ancestral tie to the medicine and everything else. But once I got there, you realize, within about 10 minutes that that's not 100% true. It's not the same as like going down and sitting, somewhere in the Amazon with a tribe that's been doing, this particular medicine for 100, 200 years or whatever. The truth of the matter with the Bufo virus, that there's a Vice documentary that was made in 2011. And you can go and watch that, and it talks about how Dr. Octavio Redig introduced, that particular medicine to the tribe to help them with issues that were going on with methamphetamine and everything else, because he was a recovering addict himself.
Oh,
Now, that's not to say that what they're doing down there is not beautiful, because it is. It's 100% amazing. I mean, they have a beautiful reservation down there right by the water. They're a beautiful group of people. They have a very in-depth history of being energy healers, and working with different, the plants and medicines and everything else. So they were already a group of healers that were very, very in tune with the earth, moon, stars, and everything else. But then when you put the advent of Bufo in there as well, all of the traditional healing songs and everything else that they were doing prior to people using the Bufo the way they do now, they've added all of that in there, and it's just a very, very beautiful experience, to have with them. However, again, you can look at the timestamp on the video. It's 2011. That's when it was kind of introduced to them in the form that it is right now, with them, smoking the vapors.
So tell
So
me a bit about like now you've developed like your own retreat center down there working with them and kind of taking it to like the next level, and you're bringing not just veterans but anyone who wants this sort of healing, correct?
correct. So again, like I said, when I came down initially, my intention was to work on myself, and then also possibly learn to do it so that I could come back to the United States and help people by serving these medicines, right? But while I was there the very first time, whatever you want to call it, spirit, I call it spirit, right? But
Right.
spirit told me, no, don't go back to the U.S. Bring the people here. This will be a mutually beneficial situation for everybody involved. I mean, this tribe here, they absolutely can use the resources of people coming down here and helping them. And then, of course, the veterans coming down are going to have a beautiful experience. So it's an absolute great exchange. So I was like, okay, now how do I figure out how to do this? So the very first few times that I did it, I started calling around to people that I knew in the spiritual community in Phoenix, and I would get like 3 or 4 people that would be willing to pay to come down, and then I would call a veteran or two and tell them that they could come for free, because it's always been my
Right.
endeavor to get this medicine to these guys for free. So that's how I started off doing it, was like that. But then eventually you burn through your list. There's only so many people that want to come down and support something like that. So I'm like, okay, how do I make this sustainable and go to the next level to where I can offer this to folks, if they want it. So then comes the part where you got to figure out, how to do that, because I'm nobody's trust fund baby. Some of these folks, they go and have 1 or 2 spiritual expenses, and now they're very well resourced, and the next thing they know, they got a whole retreat center and everything else. Okay, great. But that wasn't the case for me, right? So it's like, I got to figure out how to do this. So I went the route of starting to look into the nonprofit arena and all that, the 501c3, and initially started out looking at going down that road, but it's just so convoluted, right? So then I started looking, okay, how do you do this on a non-tax basis to be able, it's just so many different things, right? But um, at the end of the day, I decided to form, the Healing Frontline Heroes. And that organization, what we do is we do indeed bring veterans and anybody else down for retreats here in Sonora. We start off at our Toad Sanctuary in Santa Ana. We do 3 or 4 days there with some cleansing type of ceremonies. We start with Temazcal, Kambo, and some other. We also serve Changa as an introduction to the DMT, so that they can kind of have an experience in that space, and so that when the Bufo experience comes, they're a little bit more willing to fall into it, right? So we have a whole week worth of process, and it's all peer led. I have a couple of veterans that come down and help. We provide transportation from Tucson, and they come down and spend the 7 days and have a beautiful time. So the next upcoming one is going to be for the Seri New Year celebration, which is June. It'll be June 24th through July 2nd, but the Seri New Year happens in the middle of the summer, and that's because they don't subscribe to the Gregorian calendar, which nobody should, but it
Right.
is what it is. So their New Year time is during that, and that's also the time when the toads start coming out for the summer down here. The toads are pretty amazing animals, and I think I skipped something there. I didn't say that along the way there, over the last couple of years or the first year that I was here, I met a fellow that would be my future business and current business partner, Edgar Montijo, and he owns a ranch here in Santa Ana, Sonora, and it's actually a Bufo sanctuary for the toads. So we've got like roughly 500 to 600 animals out there, where we do our own medicine collection, and they're right here in Santa Ana. It's roughly, like I said, about 65 miles south of the border. So when we do our retreats, we start off here in Santa Ana. For 3 or 4 days, and then we go down for the last 3 days, and we spend time doing the ceremonies with the indigenous there in either Punta Sueca or Desemboque. So
So
when the
if somebody
folks come
wants to
down here,
participate in one of your retreats, what is it typically? I mean, what is the cost? How do they work and interact with you if they're interested?
So the 1 week retreat, that the cost for that one is 22.22, and
Okay.
of course, again, the concept is the same. The folks that come and pay are the ones that allow us to be able to bring the veterans for free. So veterans and first responders do not pay. We also do that sometimes for veterans responders' wives and spouses. We can do that as well. So, but the person coming down to pay for the trip would be 22.22, and that's for the 1 week, and that includes the price of transportation, lodging, all your ceremonies and everything from Tucson, Arizona. So you just got to get there, and we come and do the rest. We got to bring a nice van up there and pick you up, and the party starts there, right? So it's like when everybody shows up at these things initially, we have a meeting point in Tucson, however many people are going to come, whether it be, 6, 7, 8, 10. The whole thing starts right then. Once we get into the vehicle together, you got people from all different walks of life, jumping in this car to go down there and look into themselves, right? So it all starts right then, and then we've got a really really good plan. We start off number one with the Temazcal, so like the sweat lodge, right? So the very first night that the folks get down here, you're involved in ceremonies together right away. It's kind of like an ice breaking type of thing. Temazcal is nothing psychedelic and all that. It's just getting in tune with what's going to happen the rest of the week. So what I'm saying is that these people get together as strangers on day one, and by the time they leave there on day 7, you will think that these folks have known each other, their whole lives, right? And all these networks are created, and people are just, that's the beauty of having a peer-led type of thing. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the veterans, part of the stigma here is that we're just all so sick of being handled, right? So we go down to the VA, and you sit across from some little doctor, and you're just being handled. It's all checklist and theory, and at the end of the day, all he wants to do is write you a prescription and get you out of his face, and
Right.
that's it,
Right.
right? But now you come down here and you're with us. You're with guys who have basically smelled all the same shit that you have. The value of having a peer-led experience is that you're sitting there crying those tears and laughing those laughs and all of those different things with people that have had that same exact experience. It's very, very tough, to go down to the VA and be told how to recover from trauma from some little guy who just graduated from college and never even had a fist fight in his life. Right. This is a whole different type of thing that we're talking about,
Right.
and in the audacity of the U.S. government to act like they don't know that these things work. That's a whole other topic.
Well, that's true. I mean, we're at the point now where I think we're at, there's so many of us that are in this sector of revolutionary people that are doing things. I'm trying to make light and say, all right, there are people doing this. And if you want this sort of treatment, it is available. There's organizations, there's people. The shifts are profound and quickly, So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I personally feel as if that's a huge tool, and especially the veterans. I mean, is there a way that someone listening to this who maybe isn't going to go to one of your retreats, but could just donate to be able to have a veteran come?
Yes, that's a great question, and thank you very much for that. I mean, that's so essential in what we're doing. So we have set up Arizona Warrior Assembly as a nonprofit church entity. So anybody who would like to make a donation for veterans to attend these retreats or to help us further our cause here, you can go to the Arizona Warrior Assembly. We're on Facebook and Instagram, where we're currently creating our website, our live website. We're also in conjunction right now in collaboration, I'm sorry, with Warrior Songs. Warrior Songs is an established nonprofit that has been sponsoring retreats for veterans for the last few years, and they are our fiscal sponsor up until such time when all of our stuff is certified and everything back from the IRS and all that. But right now, if you wanted to make a donation, a tax deductible donation would be sent through Warrior Songs and care of, or to Arizona Warrior
And
Assembly,
we'll put
care
a
of
couple
Warrior
links.
Songs.
We're going to put links with all
Yeah,
of this because I want to encourage people. Any amount helps. I mean, if you
yeah,
want to send anything, send it, because then it's sponsoring other veterans' families,
yeah,
people in need, and just the work in general, which is greatly needed.
yeah.
So that, you're able to do any of this to be able to help an individual get this kind of treatment. So when they go
Yeah.
down, how long is your retreat? How many days is it?
We do 7 day retreats, and we've also got some mini retreats too. We do 4 day retreats, but the main ones are the 7 day scheduled retreats. We do those down here 4 times a year, and then we do a number of different 4 day retreats. Offering different modalities as well. Because what I've also got down here is a network of indigenous medicine carriers with all different medicines. So this is not one of those places where it's a one-stop shop where I'm serving everything. I'm ayahuasca. I'm mushroom. Nah, nah. We have people here that are dedicated to their particular medicines. We've got ayahuasca carriers that come through. We've got people that do anahuasca. We have peyote carriers. We have mushroom facilitators. So whenever we can set up something, whatever a group wants, if they want to come down and have a mushroom ceremony with Sweat Lodge and Kambo, we actually have a feature on our website that says pretty much build your own retreat, because you can determine what type of medicines you want, and we have the facilitators here to put it together. And additionally, we just started. We're going to be issuing the protocol. The MDMA, psilocybin. And ketamine protocol. So we'll have that as well. So we're going to be putting together some retreats for that as an entry point for some folks, because at the end of the day, I know we've been talking about, natural plant medicines and everything, right? And that's exactly what brought me onto this path. But a while back, I had the opportunity. I've been hearing a whole lot about ketamine, of course, right? And I had the opportunity to actually do this process, with a facilitator from Canada, and the effect of it was so profound. I was like, wow, this was a really, really deep experience. And it brought me to know right away that, what, there's still a lot of people out here, veterans especially, and some other folks who are not necessarily ready to step into a bunch of drums and feathers and smoke and all that stuff. They're just not ready yet.
Right.
But they still think that the only way to heal is from maybe a clinical type of setting. So for people like that who want healing but are a little bit hesitant to get into the plant medicine world, this is an excellent avenue to bring them in a setting that's comfortable to them, but yet it's still going to open them up to so much else.
Right.
Once you've had that experience, then okay, yeah, you're all in. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think honestly that fear, because well, for myself, I'm going to talk personally, but I mean, I'm in recovery, so I don't drink anymore. I was an alcoholic before.
Yeah.
So this world of plant medicine really kind of scared me, because I started thinking, is this my sobriety? Is this something? And for myself, I truly believe in ceremony, in the sense that I treat that as a medicinal thing that has done profound things and shifts for myself. Now,
Yeah.
that being said, I honor every person. There's some people that have very strong opinions about it. For myself, when it's done in a ceremony and with someone with an intention and not recreational. And when
Yeah.
by recreational, we were just going out and partying and having a good time. But with
Mm-hmm.
the intention, I see it as a therapeutic thing. I think it's
Yes.
something absolutely that is profoundly shifts. Now, that being said, no offense to those that feel otherwise. I know many, many people who are in recovery who profoundly believe in plant medicine ceremonies, as well as ketamine for processing trauma and a
Yep.
whole higher level of healing.
Yes.
I'm one of
All
them.
those,
I truly believe
that's right. All those things together in concert, you can't go wrong.
right with the right people. I mean,
With the right people. Yeah, there you
so
go. With the right
with the
people.
right people. I mean, there's many, many horror stories that are happening with ketamine and ketamine clinics.
Yeah.
And where I feel that is going wrong is that, not saying that ketamine itself is that people aren't getting ceremony. They're just strictly going in and getting a shot
Yes.
of it. And
Yep.
they're laying there by themselves. There's nothing around it. Now, energetically, I believe that if the room is not consecrated and you have person after person just coming in and
That's right.
all of their
Mm-hmm.
trauma, I think
Yep.
that experience is completely different than working with someone like you who's actually consecrating and making that whole experience. That's why they call it ceremony. So for those that aren't familiar with that, ceremony means that there's actually a ceremony that goes around that sacred medicine that's being dispersed. But
Yeah.
that being said, he still is creating something of ceremony, even with ketamine, very different than a ketamine clinic, though.
Right. Right. And then with
It's-
us having access to these other modalities, we can put together an experience, around that is just amazing.
Oh yeah, there's nothing. I think that some of the shifts that I've had in my life, once I experienced that, and my daughter, there's no turning back. Honestly, it's like what you said.
Right.
I think it enlightened me so much that I have no problem educating people on this subject if this is something that they'd be drawn to. And it's much like I said, it's a personal journey for each person. So if this doesn't connect with you, that's fine. But if
Yeah,
you're really
that's it.
looking, right, if you're looking for something that gives profound shifts very, very quickly and helps you basically dump trauma extremely quickly,
Yeah.
and there's nothing, I haven't seen anything that's quite as changing for myself. I
Yeah.
spent how many years in a therapist's office, right? Where you're sitting, talking. Um, but that experience is so different because it's more like an enlightenment as to why you've gone through those experiences,
Yes. Yes. And,
right?
and the thing that I love about is it invokes the conversation between you and your higher self. It's
Yeah,
like eventually you're asking your own self the question because we all know the answers.
right.
We do.
Unfortunately, right. Unfortunately, we
We
don't want to
know.
listen. We don't want to do it.
Right.
We don't. It's just like I said,
Right.
I use metaphors to teach people all the time. I said, we've all been the obese person sitting on the couch saying, I need to lose weight
Yep.
and not doing anything about it and not knowing how to even start that first step. And it's just like what
That's
you
it.
said. When you started doing this, you're like, all right, I'm so desperate because I already want to die anyways. I'm just existing
Mhm.
on this planet. I'm
Yep.
going through the motions. I work, I do my chores, but is there nothing else? So it took that kind of depth that you finally said, I don't care. I want to do anything.
Yeah.
So trying that. And then I think I, the most incredible people that are really, really doing beneficial work are the people like yourself who have the history themselves. Because when you put your hand out because you've been there before and you reach back to grab that person, that's where the real healing begins because a person knows they can trust you because you've been
Yeah.
through what they've been through.
Exactly. It's that connection on a level that's, interpersonal and,
Uh-huh.
having worked with the public, whatever area that you're working in with the public, interpersonal communication and establishing rapport and all those things are going to dictate the outcome of most situations. And again, as it pertains to these things with mental health and all that, a lot of us are just sick of being handled and
Oh my gosh, yeah.
waiting to get to the last point where all they're going to do is, issue you some pills. This part here, you're actually being loved through this process. When's the last time you cried with your psychiatrist? I mean, we're going through this process and feeling every part of it, and that you're supported, and that's the difference. Because the VA, they do what they can, and understand that it's a convoluted system that's set up by the system, and
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that we that could go on for days about why it is that way. But at the end of the day, even they have acquiesced at this point, and they are dedicating millions of dollars to the research of these
Are they?
modalities.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so nice
Mhm.
whenever we start hopping ahead and things are starting to happen. But
Mhm.
I really think it's happening because of individuals like you. I mean,
I think so.
I really do. I think that it's individuals that are saying, hey, we're having results. And you know what? I guess if we have to leave the country to do this. Now, you've set up things where people can legally get it even in the United States, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So the opportunity, like there's other retreats. Matter of fact, we've even talked about putting on some up in Sedona area and
Hmm.
some other places because it is totally legal when it's administered underneath your church.
Yes.
So that you don't have to worry about legalities. I mean, you are covered. So there are things that are done, but there's the option also to go and work with the indigenous people down in Mexico with you as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that's pretty much it. I mean, they can come down here or they can go with us to Colombia because Colombia has our ayahuasca retreat and we've got a ashram down there with an Ayurvedic retreat that's 14 days and total body cleansing Ayurvedic diet mixed with Jurema, and then we do Bufo at the end of that one. So there's quite a few different options that we have to be able to send folks to a retreat or to put something together special for them, here. Like I said, we have access to a lot of different modalities.
Right.
And, what I've learned over the past couple of years is that, yeah, you can have a person come down here and stay, 7 days or whatever, and give them a beautiful experience on some, a pre-scripted type of program. However, a lot of the healing that people need is deeper than just a week, right? So, and then also there's so many different modalities that you can tap into for an individual, depending on what their issues are, right? So, what we're doing here now is I had my first 3 people come down last year. We do a 30-day program where you show up, and we're just analyzing the whole time. Like when you first get there, there's going to be some standard things that are going to happen, Temazcal, sweat lodge, Kambo, all the cleaning type of stuff. But then as we get to know the person a little bit better, we'll see where that person needs to jump into this journey, right? So because not everybody needs to have the entry point of Bufo. Bufo is a totally, different experience, right? But some of the experiences with the Bufo won't make sense to you unless you've had the opportunity to tie into your true emotions, right? So it's like there's different entry points for everybody. Maybe this person needs to start with mushrooms. Maybe this person needs to go with ayahuasca. Maybe that, so we have access to all these different things, so we can actually put together more of a individualized
Right.
type of healing session for that person. They can stay as long as they need to make it happen. Because
Well, I'm telling you, the Columbia one is calling to me because the whole art of Vedic cleansings. I mean, I watched a documentary that forever has enticed me because the art of Vedic cleansing is real. I mean,
yeah,
and a lot of the root issues going on a lot with a lot of mental health is cleansing that has to occur.
absolutely.
And the veterans in particular, because
Hmm.
they were around all those burn pits and carcinogens, you guys got to
Hmm.
suck it all in. And all the VA
Yeah.
did was say, "What's all right? We'll take care of you when you get cancer."
Right.
Or when
Yeah.
your brain starts going on you and you have dementia and other things because of the carcinogens. So that's really awesome. What is the Ayurvedic one typically run when you go down there? Go to
So
Colombia?
all of our retreats are the same price. It'd be the
Wow.
22. Yeah. So now down there we have one actually coming up next month for Colombia. It's going to be like June I think it's the 5th through the 19th. And again, it's a totally Ayurvedic retreat. You stay at an ashram there, and they have there's actually 3 days of Shivambu included in there. And Shivambu is the urine therapy, which is actually very, very cleansing. Right, so it's an Ayurvedic technique where you will essentially drink your own urine for
Oh,
three
yeah,
days.
I've heard about this.
Yep. Hmm.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
can do that. I keep on saying, yeah, I live in
Yeah.
Florida, people. We know about this stuff. But
That's what I
I'm
said
like,
too. I
I
was like,
don't
well, wait a
know.
minute, I'm a little leery of this, but you know what? I'm here and I'm going to do it, and I did, and it was amazing, right? So
Well, good.
yeah,
Well, what
but
we're going to do is all of these certain ones, because you've got them around, you've got Colombia ones, you've got one in Mexico, and then obviously you can do retreats that are customized. So if you want to
yeah,
make contact with Michael and organize a healing retreat of your own, he can do that for you as well. And in Arizona, correct?
in Arizona, and we also provide. I mean, I do traveling services too. So if somebody in Texas wants to have a host a group down there, we'll come. Wherever you're at, we'll come. Just let us know what you need.
I think it's hard for me at times. Like I do these interviews and sometimes I get really emotional just because I work in an industry. I've worked for a company for 9, 10 years. And any given day, I probably have to tell someone, probably 10, 12 times that they can't afford treatment or they can't come and they're devastated. And I'm always trying. That's why I started this. It was kind of an
Mhm.
act of love that I'm so highly connected within this field of individuals who are doing all different forms of revolutionary things in mental health, that if it speaks to them, I want them to find, like, all right, they need to be able to find you, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm like, if we just have this where it's like we lock arms, it's not wrong, it's not right, it's not this is right, this is wrong. It's not an anti-medicine movement. It's about what works for people. And
Yeah.
what you unlocked, well, number one, you can see you're getting all built again and buff. Um, that, you know, it's like coming back to being our best version of who we are supposed to be.
Yes.
Not what, um, you know, when we're just, like you said, going through life being numb, drinking, numbing out, smoking, whatever we're doing, eating, all of the addictions and the behaviors that we do just to survive. And
Yep.
this world taps us into such a different, I mean, the plant medicine world, it's all of a sudden you start realizing, like you said, all the craziness that we value or
Yeah.
part of that just really isn't that important,
Right.
you know, that's really not that important. But that being said, you as an individual who's listening to this have an opportunity to make it happen for other individuals. So any amount that you donate generates people who are in desperate need to be able to participate and go to these kind of retreats that he's putting on. And that's the most beautiful gift in itself, is because there's so many people that are really, really suffering and just don't know where to go. They don't know where to go. And
Right.
so what you've created is beautiful. I honor what you did, that you followed your heart. And I tell you, Spirit really has led you to do some amazing things, Michael. You've made the
Thank
world
you,
a
Deb.
better place. And we're
Thank
gonna plan something together up in Sedona for sure. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for being a part of this. And anyone that's listening to this, the links are below for you to be able to be in contact with Michael and his organizations. Certainly donate whatever that you can afford to donate if you have the capability to do so. Or more importantly, just attending it, you then are going to subsidize another person who can't attend, because that's what his model is to what he's doing. So one of two things. For one, I'm thinking seriously that Columbia retreat's my next one.
Okay.
I'm thinking that's pretty awesome. That sounds amazing. I mean, I'm all for the whole idea of the Vedic cleansing and uh,
Yes.
everything that you do. It's pretty amazing. We'll be able to put some of them. Maybe we can actually put some B-roll on there so it'll show like the Bufo frogs and how you actually milk them.
Yeah, I've got some content I can send you. Yeah, we've got
Yeah, I
all
would
that.
like
We've
that.
also, you know what I didn't mention also, the this summer's coming up. We do a Bufo facilitator course down here um, at the sanctuary.
Oh,
So we there's a lot of people that teach, you know, facilitator courses year round, whether they be online or whatever else the folks are doing up in the U.S. But we teach our facilitator course only 2 or 3 times a year, and of course during the summer, because that's when the toads are out. So the benefit of coming down here then, if you're going to be a full facilitator, is to actually make connection with these toads and understand what that process is to, you know, collect the medicine and everything else, because that's a whole nother that could be a whole podcast in itself in terms of, you know, the different collection things that are happening down here in Mexico. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody knows without a doubt that the cartel is in charge in Mexico. You know, that's what they do here, right? So anything that makes money, just like the cartel in the US, anything that makes money, they want to have a piece of it, right? So when you start talking about Bufo, you got a bunch of cartel represented folks running around Sonora squeezing toads and just, you know, getting medicine and selling it. They don't, it's not, there's nothing sacred in that connection process. They're just squeezing medicine out of the toads because they know it's worth money. And that's how you see, you know, different medicine examples. You'll see some very, very clean, golden looking Bufo, or you'll also see a bunch of Bufo with blood and stuff in it. And the problem is that a lot of people in the US don't know the difference.
well, I like
They'll
that. I
do.
mean, honestly, knowing your sources are really, really important as well. I mean, when
Mhm,
we're talking about this kind of thing, so
mhm.
finding, excuse me. So if someone wants to be a facilitator, what does that end up? I mean, what does it entail? How many days? What does it cost?
Yes. Okay. So our facilitator training is a 45-day process. 3 weeks of it are online, and we have different courses that we teach online for 3 weeks, and then you come down here for 1 week and do the actual hands-on. You know, we're going to do a lot of Bufo together. We're going to do some ceremony setting. We're going to take you down to meet the tribe. You're going to collect your medicine. You know, we're going to do all these things in person to help. You know, we're going to do the safety protocols, you know, the integration. We're teaching everything that we can for folks to be the most safe facilitators that they can be. And that's what this is all about. We're not saying that, if you come down here and we give you our blessing, now you're good to go. No, we're not saying that. We're saying that if you're going to do this,
Right.
then these are some safe ways that you might be able to put in your toolbox. And oh, by the way, it might be a good idea for you to actually make a connection with the toad before you serve it. There you go.
I never really thought of that. I mean, toads don't die. You actually milk it from them, right?
Yes, yes.
I've heard that they actually enjoy it.
I,
No?
I guess in the energetic sense, that is their sacrament to the world. That's what they're here to give. They stay under the ground, 8 to 9 months out of the year, and they come up just for that special time, during the monsoon season. And to that point, people think that it's the rain, that wakes them up. But no, it's the rain during the monsoon season. It softens the ground for them to be able to emerge. It's the actual thunder, the thunder from the monsoon season that shakes the earth and tells them that it's time to wake up.
Wow. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool. So now I've seen some bufo frogs out on the rocks in Sedona. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter actually found one, and you're right. Because I'm always going out when the monsoons come. I love the
Mm-hmm.
monsoons, and I love to hit out to go to the rocks right after a thunderstorm. And
Yeah.
they will come out. I'm not familiar with how to milk them or to do anything with it. So, but I've seen a couple of them out on in Sedona. You know,
Yeah. They're, all up through the Sonoran Desert. They'll be there. But now when they come out, for those 3 months or so, all they're doing is that they want to eat and they want to multiply. That's pretty much it.
wow.
And yeah, so to that point, we've got, like I said, about anywhere from 500 to 600 animals on site now. And when you have that many in one place, you have to also come up with alternatives for food, because the natural habitat there
That isn't
wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't produce enough insects in one little area to support 500 of them. So we've also got to where we can breed crickets as well, so for them to be able to consume. Is that from the time that those toads come out, during the daytime they're a little bit reclusive. They kind of be in the pond or in the bushes or whatever else. But at nighttime, they're out looking for. They go towards anywhere where there's a light. They know that there's going to be bugs there, right? So you'll just see a bunch of toads around the light, trying to collect bugs. So what we'll do is, in the summertime, we've got a whole bunch of them out, turn on a big floodlight in the middle of the field and throw
and you
down a
guys
whole
stay
bunch of
on
crickets.
top, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I,
Hmm.
I think about each one of these plant medicines and the things that people are doing with them. It's amazing that we're finally talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that we finally have entered, and in some regards, it's Americans or whatever that are coming out and saying, I've had these really profound experiences. But like you
Hmm.
said, indigenous people have had it for a long time.
Exactly. And that's
It
the
was
thing.
all kind of stigmatized, like they don't know what they're talking about. Come on over to this side, we're the ones that are cultured. Here's some medicine for you. And
Hmm.
the irony is, here we were part of that. Here we're the proverbial American white people, and we're the ones that are having these profound shifts, experiencing something that really has been around
For
forever,
thousands of years,
right?
right?
And
And then
we thought
with us,
somehow we got it better.
hmm
But the truth is, they did.
but yeah, absolutely. They've known forever, right? So, I've had plenty of time to ponder all these different things, right? Having been down here. And by the way, one of the names that they call me down there is Dances with Toads, right? So you remember the Kevin Costner movie, right?
Yeah,
The Dance with
yeah.
Toads, right? Where he
I
went
think
out there and then
I think
and
we
then
should pose you out like dancing around with the toads, kind of like
uh,
we should get you out in the dark, and have that light in your silhouette dancing with the toads.
yeah,
When there's that many that come out, you have to be worried that you're not stepping on them.
yeah, there's a lot of them out here in Sonora. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
The
that's just yeah, that's amazing. Well,
the
for
irony in that, Debbie, to finish that thought, the irony of it is, like in that movie where Kevin Costner went out to that remote post and
right,
then developed a relationship with those Indians and understood exactly who they were as people.
right,
Then when his people showed up, it made what he was there for a little bit more difficult,
right,
right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is, the irony of all this is that, especially for soldiers who have been, the instrument of destruction for the U.S. policies all around the world, we think about the absolute fact that all of these wars and everything else, if we get down to the bottom of it, these are all things that are happening against indigenous people of these lands, right? So now, how ironic is it that the
Oh,
pain,
I
trauma, and everything
never thought
that
of
we
that.
suffer, right? How ironic is it that the pain, trauma, and everything that we suffer as a result of doing that shit to them, they're the only ones that can really help us heal from it.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Talk about a full circle and thinking about forgiveness. It's the
Yeah.
ultimate. I never
Yeah.
really thought about that, but literally we're having the people that we've harmed who are creating the ceremonies that are healing us.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Yeah.
guess I mean it's like the sweat lodges on indigenous on Native American lands that are
Mhm.
happening all over this country now. People,
Yeah.
truth is that a lot of the reservations now are actually have gone back to having ceremonies and bringing back peyote and
Yeah.
tribal. And I never really thought of that because I'm thinking, it's almost like a touristy thing for some individuals. Like, hey, I'm going
Yeah.
out to the Native American and we're doing the sweat lodge. And my thought was how wonderful it is that we're actually getting to experience authentic sweat lodges, right? And the things that they've been taught. Never really
Mhm.
thinking about, just like you said, the parody of this is we're actually going back onto their land. We stripped them of many of these sacred ceremonies, shaming them into thinking they were heathenistic or awful. And here
Yes.
we're in floods. We're going back to these indigenous properties and saying, please help me.
Imagine that, right?
I never thought of it that way. And I mean, talking about, like you said, the military people going back in and here, the people they harmed, and that many of them, they're healing. Wow. That's,
Hmm.
that is so
Yeah.
deep.
So a couple of years back, I got my hands on I heard somebody mention the eagle and the condor prophecy. You familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's the eagle and the condor prophecy basically speaks of a time when the people who are in charge of the world will be people whose hearts are disconnected from their minds. So therefore, the eagle and the condor representing the northern native tribes. The eagle is the northern native tribes, and then the condor, of course, is the southern American native tribes, right? So they're saying that in this prophecy, it's going to be the culture, the wisdom, and the medicines of these tribes that fall under the eagle and the condor that's going to help the rest of the world to heal.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
that's
true,
what's
though.
happening.
It is happening. I mean, we see it. We know just even from when I met you, this network of individuals that are providing services is really greatly, and the stigmatism that's been around these sort of practices have been released. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I'm shocked at how many people, like before, it was kind of like more on the down low,
Yeah.
you're on
Hmm.
about it. And now it's like, oh, well, I know someone, you can go here. Every
Hmm.
person is wanting like a deeper level of healing. They're really
Yeah.
wanting to look at themselves, and there's nothing like it, honestly. I don't believe. I mean, honestly, there's breath work, like you said. There's individuals, and I loved your explanation as to what actually the Bufo does, and why that it actually is a component that we actually have within our brain,
Hmm.
in our lungs. So it makes so much sense that why it like opens up that part, and it's like it gives us the communication that we're asking for.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now I have a
Mhm.
whole new appreciation for it. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Michael, for
Yeah.
sharing, being you. I mean,
Thank you.
I mean, everyone that comes on this and shares a story, I always say that it's the proverbial putting your hand back and your hand forward, because basically we're always trying to learn something more from someone else that's going to pull us forward. But if we put our hand back and help someone, we can pull someone up to where we were, and we can go forward a next step.
Absolutely.
So by each time, like, we're literally, we're not saying that something's superior, but if this makes sense, grab a hold of his hand and say, let me lead you and help you. If this speaks to you, don't
Absolutely.
hesitate. Like, he's putting out his hand, and that's the point, is that every person has the right to choose what their healing looks like, what works for them. So again, I mean, I want to expose, plant medicines. I want to expose Bufo. I want to expose everything that's revolutionary within this field that's being done. The irony is it's not revolutionary. It's something that's
Right.
been done for a long, long time. It's revolutionary for us people that stripped people of that, and we claimed it was not beneficial or it was hocus pocus or all of those beautiful things that when we get back into that, I'm the opposite. Now when I'm around people that are really indigenous and doing those ceremonies, the beauty that's around it is unbelievable. The
Absolutely.
energy that's around it is so intoxicating and so wonderful that you don't want to ever leave that. Like you
Hmm.
want to always have a piece of that within your heart because you go, I didn't realize like all this other stuff I was thinking about really doesn't matter. Like
Yes.
you
Make
do
you
that.
question what you value.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So thank you, Michael. And like I said, below for our people, we're going to have links for all of his retreats, a way for you to be able to donate to the things that that Michael is a part of. And if you want to be able to help another individual, go to one of his retreats or attend one and go. And then you know that you're already facilitating helping another individual that possibly could not come without you. Thank you.
Right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thanks, Michael.